give like a Today we're gonna talk about the book I produced, which we have the original version, and then we have the revised version, which is True Addict and True Addict Revised. This is a book I wrote a couple years ago, basically talking about my life when I was coming up in the streets and things that I seen, things that I visualized, things that helped me grow as a person, but also was a challenge for me. And the adversity that helped me grow is some things that I needed at that time, and I actually was able to make it out of these situations. So we're going to start it off today by talking about the journey, the inspiration, the hope, and the lessons that I learned. Starting off with the journey for putting this book together actually was the journey of my whole life, because all these experiences that I had and everything that I had to deal with became me and became this book. So the journey from a kid to adulthood, going through all the different experiences and stuff that I try to put in the book to try to deter some young kids from having to go through that, actually shaped and molded me for who I am. Because without any adversity, you really can't grow. You really can't build up something to be able to conquer other things that may come in life if you have no adversity and things going on. So that's the first thing I want to speak on about the book, is that this is the life of a kid from about the age of 13 to adulthood. And most of these things in here basically put me in a position where I had to fend and fight and scramble and do things myself, but also it built me at the same time. So the journey has been quite long, even completing the book and putting it out and being able to see if people gravitate to the lessons and everything that's in the book has been quite a journey. And being able to get the book published and out there to different venues and stuff like that has always been a challenge, because we live in a world where basically, you still got gatekeepers, and it's kind of hard to be able to get the book in major places. But I was able to self-distribute it and get it to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and maybe 5 or 6 other places. So it's quite successful now, but the journey to get it there was quite a journey. And this is what I have been through, because the trials and tribulations that I've been through in the book, are really the things that help build me and get me to this point that I was able to complete this book and get it out to the right people, so people can actually see it and gain lessons and actually help direct some of the youth into a better situation. So that was part of the journey of getting this book done. It took about maybe 3 or 4 years from beginning to end, the writing, the editing, 4 or 5 different editors and stuff like that. But it was worth it at the end of the day, because the book has really touched so many young people's lives. I done had plenty of good reviews, 5-star reviews, but plenty of people that have reached out to me and say that book was really an influence and impactful on their grandson or son or nephew, to be able to see some of these things in this book that I went through, and to try to get them away from actually having to go through the same things I went through, because this book is for that. You see my life, and you get to critique your life on how you want to critique it. But that's sort of the journey that it took me to get here. But it was worth every disappointment and every trial and tribulation to be able to get this book done. And that was my journey. The inspiration for the book was my life. Coming up, at a time where, most of the people in my community was on crack cocaine or some type of drugs, and this was a normal thing. Like, if you're not outside of the community and this is where you live at, this is sort of a normal thing. So I really didn't think about it too much during that time. But once I was able to get myself out of the street, the inspiration was so strong to be able to put this information out, or do a book, or even start what I was starting with the True Addict brand, the Blood on the Hands brand, that I was driven. Like, it was a non-stop drive, because I had dealt with so much, and it was so much inspiration to say, hey man, I can put this out there, or I can tell somebody about this, or I can give them what happened to me, and maybe they'll do something different, or maybe I can take this and put it in some type of form that maybe they're not going through the same thing that I went through, but it's something they might be going through that they can relate it to what I'm doing and be able to come through some type of messed up situation, or be able to choose or pick or actually go through some things to be able to raise their life above where their lowest point may be. So I was inspired all the time. As I was writing the book, I was inspired. As I remember stories and think about the scenarios or how things turned out during that time, that inspired me to keep going and going and going. And that's what it takes sometimes. You might not get it done in one day. You might not get it done in 1 week. You might not get it done in 1 year, because your inspiration is always something new popping up. Some new inspiration to be able to put part of your life out here in a book, your life in a book. So sometimes it takes time to really get it out and put it on paper. Even though it's your life and it's not fictional, it still takes time to be able to get some of the stuff out on paper the way you want to present it to the people in a way that they may understand. So that definitely was my inspiration, is like being able to have the time to lay it out and put it out the way I think it would help somebody else. And knowing that everything that happened to me turned out to be a positive. And it doesn't happen to everybody's life. Don't get it wrong. It does not happen to everybody's life that everybody gets it right or everybody makes it out, because I got plenty of friends that was in that part of the streets the time I was growing up that did federal penitentiary, or something maybe happened to them, or maybe they got on drugs and got hooked on it or whatever. So everybody's situation was not the same. But by me making it out, I have to come back and give my story and these relationship stories of dealing with these people that didn't make it, to be able to help somebody so they can see, yeah, I made it, but then there's 10 others that didn't make it. So therefore, when they stuck in these low points, they be able to make a good decision. So, I was always inspired to be able to put out information thinking that I may save a life, or I may save a man, or I might help somebody that don't know where to go, or give them some type of map or directions to be able to get their life together and get out of the streets. And that's what most of my inspiration, the hope is for everybody to be able to take this book and get something out of it. Whether it's we use this book to try to make better decisions, whether you use this book to understand that it is a way out, or whether this book can be passed down through generations to be able to get somebody to understand of what I went through, and they could try to use the information to be able to create something that works for them, or just use the book as a reference of not ever going into this situation, so you don't have to make those type of decisions that I had to make as a young boy. So that's the hope of the book, is to be able to grab somebody and really make a difference on somebody that might be in that community. The lessons in this book that I put in this book are really down to earth, to the bare bone lessons about making decisions on the spot, making decisions when things are happening, trying to deter yourself away from something that's happening right then, and not even giving the opportunity to be some decision that you have to live with later on, when you can make a decision right now. So the lessons that I put in this book, the lessons that I have learned, and they go beyond being in the streets. They go way beyond being in the streets. They could be applied to anything that you do in life about making decisions, making prompt decisions, and adding up and weighing and measuring everything that might come with it. Because the thing about life is that you gotta give great energy even to negative things. So you want to take that energy and put it into something positive, because you could use the same energy and end up being in a bad situation. And you got to be able to make decisions on point. That's why you got to add and weigh it out. And that's why I try to teach people. I say, if you're going to do something, if you're going to do anything in life, if you're going to put yourself in any position, it's going to take the same energy. There's no way to save the energy because you choose a negative thing or you choose a positive thing. It's the same energy. You just got to weigh it out and see what it's going to bring back to you and whether it's worth doing. And those are some of the lessons that I learned coming through life that actually prompt me to be the person that I am today, because I had to make a decision too, so I can be here today and to be able to do the things that I do today. But I could have just as well went in the other direction, kept going in that direction, it could end up, in the graveyard or the federal penitentiary. And I just stopped and I chose not to. So those are some of the lessons that brought me here to be able to create this book and be able to have it for people so they can look at it. And this is what the True Addict brand is about. It's about doing better, focusing, and helping people get to the next level. Let me talk about some key points in this book, right? Some of the key points in this book is basically based off being in a situation where you don't have the proper information to make another decision. And those are some of the key points that are in this book, because a lot of people basically, when they coming through life and, they stuck in a poor community where really nobody's really making it really big, or it doesn't look like anything is changing, or it's just, you just basically flowing with whatever is going on at that time. I find in my mind to understand, to venture out. And one of the key points in this book, it shows you a young man that's stuck in this bubble. They're stuck in this bubble, stuck in this community. The only people that he look up to is drug dealers, hustlers, and maybe basketball and football players or entertainers. This is a bubble that this young man is in. And when you look at that situation from looking up the hustlers and pimps and drug dealers and stuff like that, I'm gonna break down some key points about the book, just to try to give you an insight of basically what the book is here for and how can you get something out of it, and what's the main focal points of actually doing this book. So some of the key points are basically is that a lot of young brothers in the Black community go through a lot of trauma. It's a lot of trauma. Y'all might look at them as bad, might look at them as criminals, might look at them as like the worst people you ever seen. But in actuality, these are babies growing up in a place where they don't have many options. They only do what they see. And I tell a lot of parents this, that they don't listen to what you say. They only follow what they see. And a lot of people don't get that from young kids, A lot of young kids, they gravitate to actually what they can physically see. So no matter what you tell them, if you tell them, hey, don't smoke cigarettes, but then mom and dad is smoking cigarettes every day, 9 times out of 10, when they get a little older, they're gonna smoke cigarettes. It's just something that you have to understand. And some of these key points in this book is showing me as a young kid actually doing what I seen my elders do, or what I seen people that I looked up to. And people always say, it's the parents' fault, it's this and that. But actually, it's actually peers. It's what you allow them to experience and what they allow to actually take in. Because once you let a young kid off of the porch, is what we call it, back in the days, you came off the porch early, it's basically following the crowd. It's people that are mentoring your kids at the same age. You might be 13, it might be a kid that's 14, but this kid 14 might be doing a little bit more than what the 13-year-old is doing. And he continued to look at his 14-year-old was like, I want to be like him, or I want to follow him. And this only have nothing to do with television, because even before television and all of these, social media and all of this stuff, this is how it went right in that little compact part of the neighborhood. What was going on at that time is what you've seen. So the key points in this book is trying to show you that it's easily to be a follower and hard to be a leader, because there's no knowledge, there's no wisdom, there's nothing passed down to most of these kids. Because when you born in a poor community, most of the parents are working 2 jobs, if you got both parents. And if you don't have that, you got to go down until you might have a mother that's taking care of the kids, because the father is not in the house and the mother has to work 2 jobs. So therefore, you're a latchkey kid. You're home by yourself. And then they get even a little lower than that. It's probably a single parent that's probably on drugs that's raising kids. This is what happened in my Black community. So some of my key points in this book is basically for you to visualize and see how the pattern started and how I continue to run into so many roadblocks or so many situations where there weren't any options. there weren't any options. And some of these young kids, like, man, I mean, you know, these kids wake up in the morning, they go to school, they get breakfast, they get lunch. Some of them get home, don't have dinner. You know, some of them get home, don't have dinner because their mom probably owned drugs, smoking crack or whatever, and, you know, and they can't wait to go to school the next day just to get a meal. Well, over time, this builds up in this young kid's life. It builds up. And this young kid, instead of receiving some praise for doing the right thing, he received praise in that community for doing the wrong thing, which is selling drugs, toting guns, being violent, being a bully. All this stuff come from some type of mental breakdown where there are no other options in this black community. And a lot of people don't understand that. So that's why when I put this book together, I wanted people to see the mental part of these young black men and not just how bad they are, what type of trouble they're getting into, what type of people they're hanging around, or what type of time they're getting, or the violence and stuff like that. But actually, what is this young man or young woman going through mentally, and why are they going through these mental things, and what are the other options? And this book shows you that the options are very limited. They are very limited for any young man that's grown up in a community like this. And I try to make sense of it by telling you exactly what happened to me, exactly how I walked, exactly what I thought, exactly how I moved during those times in the book in different subjects. You can see that I explained how some of the situations went down that had nothing to do with me, but I was sitting there watching it and trying to understand why or what was going on, or is this normal, or is this just something that's outrageous, or should I be a part of this? So that's why I try to break down the book and give you each situation of everything that I've seen through my young eyes, being in those streets in that time, and actually how some of those things molded me, and to be able to do more than what I was doing at first, because it's the same thing in any situation. The more rope you get, the more you pull. And even in a negative situation, being in the streets, it's the same thing. The more rope you get, the more you pull. And that can happen whether it's negative or positive, because nature don't care. Nature will give you what you want. Nature will give you negative, it'll give you positive. It'll give you energy to do either one of them. It will give you energy to do either one of them. It does not care, it does not feel. If you go against nature and you think you're beating it, you're not gonna win. So that's why I try to explain to a lot of people some of the points that I make in this book is basically to give you an overview, is that when you're not there, especially as a parent, I know a lot of y'all got kids, when you're not there, there's other influences that are coming in constantly coming in when you're not there, constantly. So this young man has to try to, make decisions based on the information that he's getting, and only the information that he's getting. If he haven't ventured out or seen anything else or got anything to compare it to, this is normal life for him. It's normal life, and that's what the book kind of breaks down. It's like, look at this young boy visualizing, seeing all these things, and not one of these things in this book was at normal as he grew up. It was all the same. It was normal. It was his community is where he came up from, and that's what I try to break down in this book, so y'all can see, like, hey, if you got parents that are on drugs, parents is working 2 or 3 jobs, single moms, single dads, trying to raise 1, 2 to 3 to 4, 5, even 6 kids, and the parents haven't experienced anything different, where do you think these kids are going to get something to compare it to? If all these parents do is wake up and go to work, pay the light bill, pay the water bill, if they can, put food on the table, and then they back to work. Most of these parents haven't been outside of this community. Most of these parents haven't experienced different things. Most of these parents haven't had opportunity to sit down and gather why they're in the place that they're in today. You get what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that I try to put out in this book. Like, this kid, which was myself, was traveling through this maze by himself and had nothing else to compare it to. So therefore, the things that he was doing seemed normal at that time for where he was at. And that's the understanding that you have to have when you're reading a book like this, because people pass judgment when they see a young kid doing something. People pass judgment when they see the kids get in trouble, or when they're in court, or when they go into jail and stuff like that. But not understanding the foundation of everything that the kid been through is what molded him to be able to be in this predicament. Because most things, I'm gonna give you an example. Like when you make a kid afraid of something, it not only makes him aware that it's dangerous, it also makes him curious too. You know, because that's how we live as humans. It also makes them curious too. So if you keep telling the kid, hey, don't go out in the streets and mess with June, don't be out in the streets with him, he bad, he going to jail and stuff like that, you might capture him for a moment, but without giving him another option, he's going to be curious and why June is so bad, or why June is getting this much attention. Because even when you're talking about June, you're giving June attention. So the kid wants to know, why is June getting this much attention? So at the same time that you're trying to put fear in him, he's becoming more curious because you didn't give him any options. You didn't say, hey, don't go out there and be like June, be like Chris. And that's the type of neighborhood that we grew up in. There was nobody to compare anything to, because other than our parents working like a dog, just trying to pay the bills and put food on the table and take care of 2 or 3 kids, there was no other options to be anything else. They had no time to even think about the things that I'm talking about now. They had no time to even think about these things, or making another opportunity for our kids, or building something on their end that the kids, because most times the parents haven't even been exposed to anything. 70% of the kids, of the parents in the Black community, haven't been exposed to anything, so they have nothing to give the kid. And that's what this book points out, because my mom and dad, my parents, or anybody, my uncles, aunts, anybody in my community, they were just work hogs. They would spend so many hours at a job to go to another job. If they weren't on drugs, if they weren't on drugs, that's what they was doing. So there was no comparison. All you seen was like the local hustler, the local pimp, or whoever was making money at this local. I mean, today is scammers, but you see these people getting by, and it's the simple things. It ain't got nothing to do with the broad picture of being successful in life. It's just that Johnny and the mom has a car. We don't have one. Jim father drives a motorcycle. We don't have one. Hey, Lisa and John took a trip to Disney's World. We've never done that. So it's these little things that edge our young minds on to say, hey, I want to be part of that society and not this society. And it doesn't matter whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever it takes to get there, they're going to do it to get there, because there's nothing else offered in this community at that time. And that's what this book represents. That's why it's true Addict, because we get addicted to things that we not know of. We get drawn to things that we don't know what the end results are. We get pulled into things that become part of our daily lives. And that's what our young minds go through when there's nothing else offered. And so this book breaks that down, takes you in and out of situations where this young boy could have been murdered, killed, dead, in jail, and so many places, that he just happened to make it through it, because at some point, I became a little more wiser every time I ran into a situation, and then I was able to branch out myself. But this is not the normal story for every young Black boy. This is my story, but it's not every young boy Black story, because I got a lot of friends that are dead, that died, got killed, got shot, federal penitentiary, went away. It's not everybody's story. This is just a very, very small percentage of people's stories. But this book really opens up to like the same things that maybe the kid that died went through, and myself went through, and I made it out. You get what I'm saying? We traveled the same roads. I just happened to make it out. And I didn't make it out to the point where I made strong decisions based on the information I had. I made it out because I got tired. And when I kept running into these situations, some sparked in me and said, man, I want more. But this doesn't happen to every young man that's stuck in these situations and stuck in these streets. They never get aware. They never get open. They usually are really taken out of society before they get that in their mind. Some type of rehabilitation or something really, really tragic in their life that actually try to deter them. But most tragic things that happen in life actually kills them, disables them, or send them away for 20 or 30 years in the penitentiary. Okay, now that we talked about, some of the things that the parents can do and talking about options and stuff like that, we're gonna actually get into the book. And some of the subjects in the book are dear to my heart, so just bear with me if I get a little emotional or something like that. It's because it always brings me back to that day and that spot. And one of the parts I want to talk about in the book is one of the subjects is that the little girl. So let me break it down to you. So one day, ministries, I'm making money, I'm doing what I do, and I was on my way to meet my partner at this trap house, to do some business or whatever we was doing at that time. I ain't trying to incriminate myself, but this was back when I was a kid. So I went to this house to be able to, get with him and do some business that we're supposed to be doing, whatever. But when I go in, it's him and this lady having this thing going on, like they doing what they do. She wants drugs and she's willing to do whatever needs to be done to get drugs. I'm pretty sure y'all done heard this or seen this. You done seen this in 1,000 movies, but this is real life here. So she's doing what she do to be able to get drugs out of my partner. So when I walk in on them, I'm kind of startled because I didn't know this was going on at that moment. So what I do, I close the door and I walk back outside. So let me break down. So it's a path through the house. On the side of the house, just like a crawl space, is an opening right there. But this house was set up kind of high, so the crawl space was right in the alley on the side. So I go back outside and I'm sitting down and I kind of heard a little noise or whatever. And I'm like, what's that noise? So I get up and walk around the corner. So I'm thinking like it might be some type of animal or something like that up under the house, or a dog or a cat, something like that. But when I walk off the steps, make a right, and I go to look down there, whatever, it's a little girl there. It's a little girl there. I'm like, what's going on? Who are you? She's like, oh, I'm waiting on my mom. So the lady that was in doing what she doing for drugs had left her daughter outside, and her daughter, I guess evidently she had been there before and done this before. She was a little scared. She didn't want to be seen. So she hid. I think she was about maybe 6 or 7 years old. I can't quite remember how old she was, but she was really young. And she was sitting right at the edge. So you got this big square that's up on the house, and it was made out of concrete. And she was sitting like right on the inside. I didn't see her when I first went to the house because my head was up and I was focused. But when I heard the noise, it made me get down to see was it an animal or something. But it was a little girl. And she told me, she was like, well, I've been sitting here waiting on my mom. I said, how long you been sitting here? She was like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever she said. It was all gibberish because she was such a young little girl. She said, well, I'm waiting on my mom because I'm hungry. So on myself, being in that situation at that time, I think I always had a heart, and it kind of messed with me. And by me being in the streets and being able to be part of this lifestyle, I couldn't just barge in on him and do whatever. So what I did, I got the little girl something to eat. I got her something to eat. And then, once everything broke up, once they finished doing what they do, whatever, like I had a conversation with my guy, like, yo, are you crazy? Do you know she had a daughter? He said, nah, I didn't know she had a daughter with her. So the lady left her daughter outside to be able to go in there and do what she needed to do to get drugs. And it was sad. So how do you, the feeling that came over me as a young kid, I think I was probably about maybe 16 going on 17 or something like that, man, it actually floored me. Even as a young man, floored me to think that, and I wasn't even thinking about like, maybe somebody would have done something to the girl she left outside, whatever. Is that the point that the mother would leave her daughter outside and would go do something like that without even the fear of something happening to her daughter or leaving her outside and stuff like that at the tender age of 6 or 7 years old. You wouldn't even think that would happen. But that's the power of drugs and cocaine and stuff that it had on our mothers in the black community back then. So I understand it now, but back then I didn't understand it, but it was a normal thing. So instead of me thinking way left, which some of y'all probably would think way left, like, man, this is horrible, let me to call the police, this and that. I'm part of this whole situation. I'm part of this unit. I'm contributing to what's going on. You understand what I'm saying? But the way that it made me feel, I just can't remember, like, me being so confused and me be like mentally like not understanding how a woman could do that and just have such less care for her daughter at that time. But I couldn't really get involved because at the same time, I'm part of these streets. I'm part of what's going on. I'm contributing to this. But it affected me so much that basically I could never forget this. I could never forget that little girl, little face. And actually, the only thing that I could do at that time is I told him not to serve her no more. Like, don't ever serve her again. She can't come around here, you know, this and this, that. And he agreed with me because he didn't even know that she had brought a daughter with her and left the daughter outside. And then when I told him that like she was hiding up under the crawl space, it was 10 times worse because that's what animals go and hide at. You know, that's where you find stray cats and dogs and stuff at. So that really tore a lay off my heart, being in this situation and seeing it happen, man. And you know, that was rough. That really destroyed, you know, kind of destroyed my mentality at the time, because every time after that, I looked out for that. I was paranoid. I looked at, you know, when I seen people do certain things with kids and stuff, it made me be aware, like, man, are these kids eating, or is she bringing food home, or does she need this money to feed her kids? Like, I went through those things as a young man, and a lot of the guys didn't go through that. A lot of guys really didn't care, but it was just part of who I was at that time. That, you know, I had something instilled in me, you know, that my heart went out to what was going on in our community, dealing with mothers that were addicted to crack cocaine and what happening to their young kids. And that's one of the subjects in the book that show you that I was also going through mental abuse. You know, I was also going through mental abuse, being in these situations, dealing with this stuff in my community. And even though I went through that, it doesn't stop us as young men to be able to change our lives, because that trauma just seemed so normal at that time. It seemed like, yo, this is what's going on. This is your community. Everybody's doing this. Everybody's a part of this. And even though no, everybody's not a part of that, at that moment as a young man, your mind don't expand that far to see that, oh, this is a problem in my black community, or this is a problem. The only problem was going to jail. The police catching you selling drugs and you going to jail. That was the only problem during that time that would put some type of fear in me. But it doesn't stop you from doing what you got to do, because, like I said last time, there wasn't many options to do anything else. But that young girl really engraved something in my mind that I always remembered through my whole life. And even to this day, sometimes I think about, you know, like, man, how weak can somebody's mind be that drugs can take over to the point where, you know, they basically, that was abuse. They literally, you know, just didn't have any type of fear that something would happen to their child while they was in the house doing what they doing. And you know, that was one part of the book that really y'all need to read and get into. Another part, man, it was about this one guy that I had met back in days, and you know, and it was a regular guy. I mean, this guy, and I'm trying to show y'all right now that it not only affects the poor black community, it branches out. This guy I knew that wasn't even part of what we was doing, or part of the black community, or part of the heart of where we was at, but it's somebody that went to school with us, that end up at the same school with us, that end up getting on drugs, catching HIV, and end up dying. You get what I'm saying? End up dying, being involved in the midst of that. And you know, it was a shock to me, because he was actually born of privilege. Like, his family had money, you know, they weren't struggling, something like, but the point that other people could be drawn into this life, into this situation, and not even come up in a situation where they don't have any option. He had options. So that's how powerful the allure of being in the streets, being a hustler, or going against the grain is to people, that you could draw people in that have never ever experienced this, or never had to be a part of this, or had other options. You know, it's a lot of people that we grew up with, that parents was doctors and lawyers, they wanted to be involved in what we was involved in, because it was the allure of being a hustler, or being part of the streets that drew everybody. And I can't really say that they wasn't right, because even the women when we was growing up that was outside of our community preferred us. Now, we grew up in a poor community. We had an outside toilet. Like, we literally had an outside toilet. Like, we had a bucket behind the door. It had an outside toilet. We had to dump our pee and our doo in when we finished. We had that outside. You get what I'm saying? And these women and stuff that grew up on the other side that had parents that had 2 or 3 cars, nice business and stuff, would be drawn to us. So that didn't help us as young black men at all, because we're like, man, so she want to deal with me, and I experienced it through year. I mean, it's documented. Year through year, school, every grade through school, these women are attracted to me because of the allure of who I am or who they think I am as a drug dealer or a street guy. When they have options to deal with guys that are going to college and getting degrees and stuff like that, but they're attracted to that. So that's how strong that was. It wasn't just the people inside the community wanted to be a part of that, but people on the outside of the community, that happened to them also. And that's what happened to the guy. He wanted to be a part of that. He got caught up, got HIV, he ended up dying. And, and all of the women that got poured into that were women of successful families and stuff, but they wanted to be poured into. So it ain't hard to be poured into that life. And these stories are really deep once you get into here and you start seeing some of the things I went through, man. It's amazing some of the stuff us young brothers see. And there's so many stories. This book doesn't even represent half of the stories and stuff that I've been through and stuff I experienced. Just like when I talk about in the revised book about the guys beating me up, kidnapping me, beating me with a gun and stuff like that. Like, that was a normal thing of our community also. Being robbed, beat, shot, all this stuff is normal. So I wasn't able to touch but a couple of things in these books to be able to get insight of what really be going on with us young black men coming up in this poor community. And like I said, I just want to be able to put this book out so you can take and see these things and adapt them to what's going on today. I ain't trying to take you back. I'm trying to take you to today, to take some of these things out of these books and apply them to what's going on, because it's still bad in a lot of these places. I mean, it's some projects they ain't even told. I go back and forth to DC, my brother Khalid or whatever, Potomac Gardens. I mean, these kids still dying out there every single day. Drugs, violence, guns, it's still going on. So that's why I'm doing my part with this book, to be able to put the insight out. And so some of these parents that don't know what's going on can see some of the things that these kids can fall under and be able to try to pull them out with other options. That's what I want to do. And that's what I want this book to be able to do to people, man. But this book right here has been one of the things that has helped so many young black people that I've known to be able to see themselves through the light and see that if I can make it, no privilege, there's nobody in my family rich, nobody in my family successful. I don't have no lawyers, no doctors, or none in my family. And I was able to pull myself out of this hole to try to be successful. And that's the standard that I wanted to set. And I set the standard in this book to see, hey man, everything that you done seen, everything you've been through. And I've probably been through more, because a lot of people ain't been up under a gun with 3 people standing on top of you beating with a gun. But I made it through it. So if I can make it through those things, most people can make it through some of the simple things that this book may represent, and showing them how to, veer through, and help some of the parents say, hey, let me create some other options for our kids. Let me create some other options for our kids. So like I said, man, to summarize this book, to sum it up, this book is really for somebody that need to feel the real spirit of a young black man struggling, going through things, fighting enemies, fighting devils, fighting all types of bad spirits, to be able to come out of this and be able to give back. That's a 360, and it can happen to anybody if you put your minds to it. If you create options, if you're worried about your child being in the streets or doing crazy things or being part of, give them options. Just don't tell them that it's bad or they should be doing this. Give them something else to fight for. Give them something else to strive for. Give them some other type of feelings that they can build on and be able to create this new atmosphere. You know, even if you're struggling and you're doing a little bad where you at, take what you're doing, put it to the side for a minute, go sit down and have a conversation with your kid. Go find out some things about them. Talk to them on another level of where they want to be or where they want to go. Show them the things that could take them out and show them things that can help them out. Just don't give them the negative. Just don't try to instill fear into them. Give them some hope. Give them some value. Give them some insight. Put them somewhere where they can learn some new things. Put them somewhere where they can visualize some new things. Most of these kids, they sit home today and they play video games and they on social media and stuff like that. It doesn't void y'all parents from going in there trying. And that's the thing that I want to put out. You have to try. A lot of these parents, when I talk to a lot of these people, they don't try. They sit back and say, well, you know, they stuck in social media or they stuck this or they want to do this friend, this and this and this and that. This is what they saying for the outside. This is what they saying because they have never walked in the room and sat down and asked that young man or young daughter, sweetheart, young man, you know, what are your goals? What are your ambitions? What do you want to be? They're just assuming that they're okay, but they're trapped in this social media world where anything goes down. It's 10 times worse than it was 20 years ago. So don't give up. Take your time. Go in there, have a conversation with them. If you got to have 3 conversations with them, 5, no matter what, there's no limit to having a conversation with these kids and finding out what they're aspiring to be or to find out where they're at. Now, we don't have as much control as we used to have back 20 years ago when you can literally, you know, set it up for a kid to travel away because now the world is wide open. The internet made the world wide open. But there's still no excuse for you not to sit down with your child and give them an opportunity to do better. Give them an opportunity to tell you where they want to be at and where they want to go and what they vision in life. Because a lot of y'all parents don't know. Y'all don't take time to sit down with your kids. Y'all assume and y'all walk off. Y'all assume they're doing this. Y'all assume they're doing that and y'all walk off. And that's what you got to stop doing. You got to sit down with them and give them an opportunity to tell you something or tell you nothing. And that's what I'm going to conclude with this book. So take time, get the book, trueaddict.com, or if you hit me up, I'll give you a signed copy or whatever we need to do. But beyond this, if you decide not to invest into this piece of literature to help you, please sit down, pause, and give the kid the opportunity to say or not to say. That's what we're missing. And I'm concluded. I appreciate y'all coming today, and it was a great day. And hopefully y'all get this book and keep supporting True Addict brand, and we will continue on. Thank you, and I'm out. You know, everything that I do from this book is here to actually help you help somebody else. That's my main goal. You know, I feel like that it's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to create a better community for these kids. And even though it ain't back in these times, it's a new time and it's a lot worse. So hopefully I was able to help y'all with that today and giving y'all some insight on the book and things that need to be done in our community with our kids. And hopefully, you know, y'all be able to grasp and do something better for the kids.